Everything we believed in was fiction. Let's not talk about it.
That's correct. That's correct.
This world of ours was not meant to last. Let's not talk about it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Everything we believed in was true. Let's not talk about it. Maybe this world of ours is only getting stronger. Let's not talk about it. Now is the time to be brave. Now is the time to be brave. Now I only drink lemon lime. Gatorade. Ew. 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 I won't text and drive today. I won't do it. I can't change my mind today. I can't do it. I won't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I won't do it. There's a soft parade in my head. It's a soft parade in my head. Space. Space. It is the place where I like to go when I feel a little low. Now is the time to be brave. Now is the time to be brave.
correct.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hang tight. With 1 minute to go, Ben decided to sweep the steps. So hang tight, and we'll be right with you with the Ben Joravsky Show. Hurry up, dude.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffemanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel. Woo! Yeah!
What a dumb commercial. How's it going, everybody? We're here. Ben cleaned the steps off. The steps good now?
They're clean. And by the way, just take a look how nice it is outside. All right? The sun is shining. The skies are blue. You hardly know we'd be in the middle of a pandemic. I saw a guy ride by on his bicycle. Was that kid smoking reefer over there, D, in the alley?
I don't see anybody.
I don't see him, man. He just stuck behind the telephone pole. Hey, man, give Dennis some of that. Oh, sorry. So it's a beautiful day in Chicago, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, how's it going, everybody? Hope you're hanging in there. Let's get it going here. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, April 1st. Oh, hey, April Fool's Day.
Oh, no, the joke's on us, huh?
Your Ben Joravsky Show is just moments away, but before we get into that, let's thank these unions. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9. The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, April 1st is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Benny J, song of the day.
Well, in honor of the great John Prine and because it's topical, some of the things we're going to talk about. But John Prine, man. John Prine is, ladies and gentlemen, one of the singers.
If you ask me, he's my favorite songwriter of all time.
I was going to say, it's one of the few that Dennis and I both like. And I agree with you 100%. Love John Prine. Pride and Joy of Maywood, Illinois. Came out of Proviso High School. I don't even think there was a West, so it was just Proviso in those days. Was a mail clerk, was in the Army. It was discovered. Where was he discovered? At a folk club, I want to say, in Old Town. Chris Christopherson wrote him up and got his first record cut. And he's a great songwriter, D. You're absolutely correct. And he is doing better now. He had coronavirus. He got the COVID-19, but he's doing better now. Is that correct?
Said he's stable. His wife said he's stable.
Well, that's good. So all
How
the
about
best
that song of the day?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jeez,
Dear Abby, but be signed, bewildered, bewildered. You have no complaints. You are what you are, and you ain't what you ain't. Johnny Prine, everybody.
Please stop knocking on the table so hard. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Wednesday, April 1st, and live from Ben's attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, it's the return of professor, author, and dear friend of the Ben Joravsky Show, David Faris, over the phone. And now your host, not over the phone, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Get Me Tiger Wednesday. And here's why. I'm like the rest of you folks, trying not to lose my mind, looking for respite from the corona madness wherever I can get it. But, folks, it's really hard. One of my allies, one of my best allies in this fight for sanity, is a Netflix series called Tiger King. And you probably...
I like how you're explaining this to everybody. It's a Netflix series. Not sure if you've heard of it or not.
Well, you know, some people haven't.
Yeah, right.
Haven't you ever heard of the parenthetical in journalism? Do you know about that? No. Huh? In journalism, you're taught not to assume anything. Now, it's interesting. There's a conversation. I'm on a detour. But there's a whole interesting conversation on this at the Reader for years. So, for instance, when I'm writing political stories and I mention, let's say, Mayor Richard Daley, okay? I can't assume that absolutely everybody knows that the Mayor Richard Daley I'm referring to is the father as opposed to the son, even if I signify that it was in the 1960s that he was the mayor. And so you have to do the parenthetical. And sometimes for a political reporter, the things you have to do parentheticals about are so freaking obvious. But the editors tell you, you can't assume any level of knowledge from the people that you're dealing with because, you know, let's face it, most of them aren't paying attention. And so you're always constantly having to educate. So if you're in journalism for a long time, you're constantly putting those parenthetical reminders. You listen to some of the journalists we interview, like whenever they talk about anything. Listen to Romana when she talks on Friday. You watch, almost any time she makes a reference, she has that drop back, and then she explains what it was. Just because there could be one person out there.
You're talking about explaining boring stuff. This is the Tiger King.
Okay, all right. I will now name, let's see, Kevin Durant. How many of our listeners know who Kevin Durant is?
Oh, the Durantula.
Yeah, so in other words, there's things that you know in your heart of hearts and you can't believe that other people don't know, and they don't know them, so you need the parenthetical. Remember that great interview we did with Lior and Philip, where they were astounded by my ignorance of popular music? What was the one kind of music that I didn't know, D? Remember it? God, it was a certain kind of rock. P-rock, was it?
Progressive rock.
Yeah, what's that? And they're like, oh my God. Anyway, so yes, Tiger King. It's this Netflix series, like Dennis says. Most of you probably know about it, but there's some out there who don't. It's about these insane people who are nuts about big cats, and not an affinity I have. Lions and tigers, not really my thing.
More of a dog guy.
More of a dog guy, but I'm not like going to get a wolf. You know what I'm saying? It's like these guys are not just like cat lovers, like like I have a Siamese or something like that. No, they like lions and tigers. Anyway, yes, Dennis is correct. You probably have all seen it. It's the #1 show on Netflix. There's a good chance you've seen it. So really, the parenthetical I need not do. I will say this though. It is about, really what it's about, are a bunch of batshit crazy people. I swear.
Hey, wow. Whoa,
Sorry,
come
man.
on.
Sorry, man. Here comes the train. I got carried away by the train. It's my Kim Fox moment. You think Bill Conway's going to make a
What kind
commercial?
of rowdy show are we doing here? The train cursing?
But the funny thing, D, about my love for this show and the fact that I've been obsessively watching it and talking about it with anybody that has seen it. You've not seen it yet.
No.
Yeah.
I don't have Netflix.
Yes, you do not have Netflix. You should get you sign up for like isn't there like a trial period? You can get it for a month.
Every now and again, I'll miss the Trailer Park Boys, and I'll sign up and I'll watch all those, and then I'll just get off of it again.
So maybe you could sign up for Tiger King. Anyway, so generally I would not be watching Tiger King. I'd be above it all because oh God. The number one show on Netflix, I'm too cool, to watch that. Or then if I did watch one episode just so I could be a part of the conversation, my inner NPR would come out of me, it's very ironic. The show is ironic. That's like one time I was on, they actually invited me to be on Channel 11, which they had that reporter show where the reporters sit around a table and discuss the news of the week. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. So they had me on the show, and I was, every now and then, there were like 4 of us, 3 general assignment reporters and a sports guy. And so everybody got to participate in the news of the day. And then they got to the part of the show where it was sports. They would only let the sports guy talk. I'm like, I know as much about sports as this guy. Why don't I get to talk? This is the sports guy. But he got to participate in the political stuff. He doesn't know anything about politics. Anyway, but they treated sports like, it's so ironic. People actually care about these things. So that's how I probably would have handled Tiger King back in the day, but not anymore.
What year was that? What year was that when they asked you to go to WTT?
That was still probably the last time they invited me because I complained because they wouldn't let me. Hey, what about me and the sports thing?
The sports guy. Rom's cool.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Guys, he's really cool.
That is dude, that's exactly how it went down. He's like, my kid's in a preschool with what was Daly in the time. That's how long ago. Daly's lawyer, and I heard from him. He's really cool. This is like the level of discourse, but they allow that. I can't weigh in on the Bears quarterback situation. I know as much about the Bears quarterback. Anyway, where was I? Oh, Tiger King. So yes, back in the old days, I would have been much like a host on NPR. Oh, that's very interesting, Tiger King. How ironic. But no, now I'm hooked. I need it. I need my daily dose. Those freaking lunatics provide a little sanity. They're so insane that it gives me, a break from the real insanity of life. And I'm watching it and going, oh my God, this is great. I love this. Yeah, so a little insane. Like, for instance, yesterday I went to the Walgreens, had to pick up a prescription. So I went at, it was dusk. Nobody's out on the streets. I'm very careful and cautious. It was social distancing. Hey, Lori, I listened to what you said, okay? I practice what you preach. So I'm walking down the streets, and there's like a guy coming at me on my side. D, what I do? I walk to the other side of the street. I'm not,
Nice, good job.
That's how I do it.
Expert social distancing.
Yeah, and since all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's another guy coming at me from the opposite street. Boom, right back. Or maybe sometimes I have to walk down the middle of the street so that the passerbys on the sidewalk
don't get hit by a car.
I know. There's the other thing. Oh my God, I feel like Gail Sayers in the ducking and dodging the tacklers because here comes a car. Oh God! But you know what? That's how you do it in this day and age. If you want to get a little fresh air, you got to practice social distancing. Anyway, so I'm be very cautious. I'm at the Walgreens. I get my prescription filled. I'm feeling really good about it. I have a nice exchange with the pharmacist, and I thank her for her being at work on the front lines. And as I turn the corner around an aisle, I have to admit this, D. I had my head down, and I was texting. I look up. There's a dude. He'd be coming right. I didn't see him. He turned the corner when I had my head down. He's coming right at me, and I swear to God, it's like I don't know if it's my imagination took control, but I swear to God, it's like he had a runny nose. I'm like, what? You can't rely on anybody to be social. I was like, I'm going to tell Lori Lightfoot on you. Anyway, so I started freaking out on the walk home. I'm like, oh, no, I have it. Happy to say no signs of it yet, but come home, give me Tiger. I'm all freaked out. Give me Tiger. I watch Tiger, all right? That's one of the things I do.
Okay, did you wash your hands after all of that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's the part you need to tell.
Successfully watch. Although, there I am. I'm walking. Can you give me a sink, some soap? Anyway, so I get home. I start reading a book. I think, that's a good idea. I'll read. That'll keep me entertained. But guess what I'm reading? I'm reading The Stand. It's not the brightest idea I've ever. Stephen King's 1,400-page epic about a pandemic. It's a great book. It's a great read. But what kind of lunatic would read about a pandemic, especially a 1,400-page epic on it, in the middle of a pandemic? But there I am, D. So at night when I'm reading the book, all of a sudden I go, get me, Tiger. I need a break. Wake up today. What do I see? Newspaper. The following stories. It was devastating, man. It was headline: grim toll projected, even with distancing. Second headline: silent infections hobbling battle to thwart virus. Third headline: new controls in Asia signal fears of second wave. This one is a really depressing story because, like, when you think it's over, it's not really over. It was like 10 in the morning. I'm like, get me, Tiger. Usually, D, I do my TV watching at night. It's not the kind of thing I do during the day. I'm supposed to keep my mind sharp and keep focused, be businesslike. And, but watching TV at 10 o'clock is sort of like drinking at 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? That's a practice you want to fall into. But having seen those articles in the New York Times, I was like, can we start watching Tiger right now?
Tiger.
I need Tiger. Give me Tiger. Anyway, I'm going to give you all a diversion from the madness today because we have a great show. A lot of political talk. David Faris will be here. He loves talking politics. We'll be talking about, he's going to weigh in on the Joe Biden thing as well and talk about the Republicans and their response to the virus and the epidemic and the conflicting messages coming from the Republican Party. So David Faris has a lot to talk about. And then we're going to do the same thing we did yesterday. We're going to take a break. We're going to have Monroe, right? We're going to interview Monroe, and we'll drop that.
You say take a break, but we're going to end the show and then post it up online. Take a break sounds like go to commercial. We're going to take a 3-hour break. And
That's a valid point. That's a very valid point. Literally, we will end the show, but then figuratively, I will take a break, and then I'll interview
There we go.
So you're right. We will end the show. And then we're going to have another bonus. Dee's going to really be working overtime today. Mick Dumke and I will be in a deep dive on Bob Dylan's latest song, Two Geeks Talking Bob Dylan, man. I know. Mick Dumke. Okay, by the way, we're going to do a special show. I don't know if I broke this to you on Tiger King next week. Scotty Duff and I. Scott Duff, the comedian, is obsessed with it. He's seen the whole thing. He's got a lot of theories. So we're going to deep dive in that as well, all right, D? A lot of good deep dives. A lot of good weekend material, bonus material. But Mick Dumke and I are absolutely riveted by Bob Dylan's latest. So it's all about the Kennedy assassination, 1963. So anyway, we'll be doing that interview as well. But before we do any of that, the doctor, the pride and joy of Alton, with the news.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? Name is Dennis. All right, live stream chat. What is happening, everybody? Feel free to weigh in with your thoughts. What's going on? If you got any questions for us or whatever, we'll try and answer it. And like we always do about this time, let's talk about what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. Yeah, you all know where Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker will be at 2:30. That's right, the Thompson Center for his COVID-19 press conference. The governor announced Tuesday, and we talked about this right before the show ended, that Illinois' stay-at-home order has been extended to April 30th. So, yes, Ben Joravsky Show listeners, that means our gnarly beast of a third co-host, the Brown Line, is here to stay for a while. Get used to it, people. Maybe one day, Ben, I'll open up the window when it comes by and we'll get the full effect, huh?
Well,
that'd be like a bonus.
That would be a bonus. And that day is coming because it's pretty soon going to it gets really hot in this attic, by the way. Just a word of warning.
We can't do the podcast here with the window open.
Well, no, I guess we could.
It's way too loud.
Yeah, it gets very loud. Or you could close the window. Here comes the train. Close the window.
All right. Now, Ben Joravsky, you're no longer a young man.
Still a young man.
Trying my best to not say you're old. Have you ever seen or lived through anything like this in your lifetime?
No, absolutely not. And I speak for people of my generation. Nope, absolutely not. This is a new experience. For instance, just what I described earlier, walking down the street, crisscrossing to avoid passing somebody within 6 feet. And just that alone, the psychology there, Never anything like it. Walking through the aisle of a Walgreens and suddenly being scared when you're startled by somebody turning the corner. And it happens all the time. Really, the notion of social distancing, D, it's really hard to practice because on some levels, when you leave the house, because you don't control all the factors. How many times like you come down to I don't know if you mostly ride your bike, so you don't have to deal with this. But if you're walking down the sidewalk and you're coming to the end of like where the alley is, someone could step out of the alley. You can't see them coming. Normally, it wouldn't be that big a deal, but now it's like, wow, yeah. And that's just one element. And then, of course, the pending economic meltdown, which is something catastrophic. I mean, I've lived through many market crashes, like 4 or 5 recessions, and but this one promises to be the big daddy of them all. But God, I'm so depressed now. I gotta go watch Tiger. Hold on, let me just watch some Tiger.
I know you seem like you're freaking out here based on that intro.
Yeah, but anyway, so to answer your question, no, nothing like this ever.
All right, you're going crazy. So for the sake of your sanity, what do you say we pretend like the world isn't going to hell for about 10 minutes?
Okay.
Let's go back to the way things used to be.
Okay.
Let's let our host, Ben Joravsky, nerd out and let loose. And let's talk about obscure political stories about the city of Chicago. What do you say, huh?
I think it's a great idea.
All right. Before we do that, well, let's see if you are, in fact, still the biggest Chicago political dork I've ever met in my life thus far. Who is the 17th Ward Alderman?
David Moore. Come on.
Oh, my God.
Come on. Why are you bringing him up? Did he do something in the news
I'm
I
just
missed?
quizzing you.
Oh, okay.
And yes, you passed. You're still a huge nerd.
How did you know?
I looked it up online.
I was like, God damn, Dennis. You've been hanging around listening to us for a long
Please stop cursing. Okay, here's this.
I said gall darn, didn't I?
No. You said GD. Stop it. Hey, here's a story that more than likely you and maybe 5 other people care about at the moment. It looks like the final results have come in on one of our Illinois primary elections. Yeah, remember those, listeners? The primary elections. Felt like a year ago. Hasn't even been a month ago. Most of the results from March 17th's election have been set in stone. Kim Fox, winner. Bye-bye, Bill the Bro. Thanks for the plug, by the way. Marie Newman, winner. You done, Dino Dan. Thanks for nothing at all. But there are still a few elections out there still undecided, and the following comes from Chiacapos in Illinois Politico. Alderman George Cardenas is close to winning the 12th Ward committeeman position that's been held by his nemesis, State Senator Tony Munoz. In the near final tally of mail-in votes, Cardenas is leading Munoz 2,795 to 2,774.
Wow. Damn, that's close.
The primary is required to be wrapped up 2 weeks after it's held, but some provisional mail-in ballots are still being checked, Cardenas tells Illinois Politico Playbook, so he's not quite ready to declare victory. It's a dramatic ending to a tension-filled race. Cardenas and Munoz have butted heads for years. We have a quote here. It says, "We just never saw eye to eye. It's hard to pinpoint one exact thing," Cardenas said. Over the years, the two have gone head-to-head, and Munoz has tried to run candidates against Cardenas, who's been an alderman since 2003. Let's pause right there. Ben, your thoughts?
Well, Cardenas has been the alderman since 2003. That's what you're saying, right? Munoz is the state senator. Actually, I could do about an hour on this thing.
Well, give us about 10 minutes.
Oh, come on, let me go an hour. What the hell? Beats talking about the coronavirus. God, it's so depressing. Okay, so committeemen, first of all, they're running for committee. Now, this is a classic parenthetical, D. This is a classic parenthetical right here. Because I feel compelled, I'm obligated to explain the difference between a committeeman and an alderman. And you say, well, Ben, everybody should know that. You know, just like everybody should know what Tiger King is. But you'd be surprised. More people know what Tiger King is than what the difference is between a committeeman and
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah. So anyway, a committeeman is a party position. You're a party leader, in this case, the Democratic Party, and an alderman is a municipal position. It's a nonpartisan position, and you represent a certain ward. You're everybody's alderman, whether you're Democrat or Republican. Okay. So this is a party position. It makes it draws no salary. In the age of the Shackman Decree, which banned political patronage, there really are no jobs at stake. In the old days, committeemen held on to jobs. So why is it important? important? Well, it has symbolic importance. So in other words, you have two strong political characters, in this case, Cardenas and Munoz, who are relatively high profile in their little neck of the woods. And it's like how would I say it? It's sort of like an alley fight. Who's going to be the toughest guy in the block? And for the longest time, Munoz was the toughest guy in the block. A good friend of the show, Adolfo Mondragon, ran against him twice, I want to say, and lost each time. I was there the second time he lost, and it was really depressing night because I thought that Mondragon was by far the superior candidate, whatever. Voters don't usually listen to me in the city of Chicago. And so Munoz and Cardenas started out sort of on the same team. And at some point, about 10 years ago, I'm losing track of time, Cardenas realized that he better move to the Joravsky side of things, become more of an independent and more of a progressive, because he could see that the demographics were changing, the times were changing, particularly with Chuy Garcia being elevated as sort of the number one vote getter among Hispanics on the southwest side of Chicago. So he's been moving steadily to the left. He's a progressive now. He used to be part of the machine, the regulars, and Munoz, of course, has stayed with the machine and the regulars. So it's sort of a battle between progressives and the old guard, the old Michael Madigan, Ed Burke crew. And I guess, D, it's a sign that Burke and Madigan are sort of losing their control in that neck of the woods, because if Cardenas is beating Munoz in the race for committeeman, and it's very close, as you said, it's just sort of a sign that the Chewy crowd is just cleaning up bit by bit, taking over all the different positions on the southwest side of Chicago.
I can tell you're feeling better already, Ben.
Oh, man, I could talk more. Let's go more.
Well, let's talk about the 26th ward. Newcomer Angie Gonzalez Rodriguez beat out longtime alderman Roberto Maldonado 4,057 to 3,514. In the 33rd ward, State Senator Iris Martinez defeated incumbent committeeman Aaron Goldstein. Damn, that's my ward.
That was your
that's
guy.
my guy, AG. I voted for the meanest three-pointer in all of Albany Park, all right?
Very good for remembering
Martinez also won the clerk of the circuit court position. She faces a Republican for that job in November. In the 40th ward, Maggie O'Keefe beat Alderman Andre Vasquez 6,200 to 5,514. This puts O'Keefe in a position to challenge Vasquez again for alderman in 3 years. As you recall, O'Keefe came in fourth in the five-way aldermanic race.
She wrote, as you recall?
Yeah. I know, right?
I think Maggie and Vasquez recall that, but I can't. She finished fourth. I can't remember who finished third.
Come on. You're supposed to recall that.
As you recall. Oh, yeah, I remember it well. So each, again, see, she's getting at the point of a committeeman's race. So it has symbolic importance. So Maggie O'Keefe is alive. Her sort of her name and her campaign is alive in the 40th ward. So that if she chooses to use this as momentum, a springboard to go against Andre Vasquez for alderman in what is the next election? D, I have to think about this. 2023. Good God, 2023. Just thinking about that municipal election in 2023 in the middle of the pandemic, it's just like, will that ever come? Will we even be here? Will there even be society? But anyway, let's just assume good things, and that we'll all still be here in 2023. So yeah, symbolic importance. Maggie O'Keefe was victorious over Andre Vasquez. Andre Vasquez, you remember him? He came in the old show.
Yeah,
he was
a cool guy.
Yeah, he was a cool guy. He's a rapper. And then they try to use that against him. Do you remember that? Oh, my goodness. I could get going on this forever and ever. Andre Vasquez made it into the runoff against Patrick O'Connor, who's, talk about an old school alderman.
That's correct.
Thank you, Robert Mueller. Patrick O'Connor was Mayor Daley's floor leader. He was Mayor Rahm's floor leader. Parentheticals, folks. Can't assume anything. They may know about Tiger King, but I cannot assume they know who Mayor Daley's floor leader is. This is called a parenthetical, all right? So, as such, he was the one who shepherded through the city council all the dumbest ideas that a mayor could come up with, including, but not limited to, selling the parking meters, an asset worth about $10 billion for $1 billion. How about that, Chicago? Great mayors you've elected and great aldermen. Anyway, so Andre Vasquez was running against him. He made it to the runoff. I guess Pat O'Connor would have been the third person that finished ahead of Maggie O'Keefe. I just figured it out, D. In the 2019 automatic election. So it was Vasquez versus O'Connor. And what O'Connor did was he went back into Vasquez's career as a rapper and took out all these nasty lyrics. That you think Dennis gets down on me for saying GD and SH asterisk T? Man, Andre Vasquez wouldn't last a day as a rapper with Dennis around. I mean, he had all these.
Hey, watch it.
Hey, clean up that act, Vasquez. Anyway, when Vasquez was a rapper. For 10 trivia points, D, who was Vasquez friends with that connected us on our old show?
That'd be one Dr. Dog, Damian Perdue.
The great Damian Perdue, one of the great guys of all time. Hope you're listening, Damian. Anyway, so O'Connor sent out a flyer with Vasquez, quoting Vasquez. It kind of had a boomerang effect, D, because people thought it was O'Connor saying the words. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, this is terrible. This is disgraceful. Anyway, Vasquez was last laugh in that election. He was victorious, but apparently he hasn't solidified his control of the ward because Maggie O'Keefe defeated him for commitment. So that means, as Politico's put it, there could be a rematch in 2023 if the world still exists.
There's the big dork I've grown to love. He's back, guys.
Wait, can I do the 33rd ward too? I mean, I could go on and on about that one. Well, Aaron Goldstein, I'm with Dennis. I like Aaron Goldstein a lot. He ran for Attorney General. There were like 8 people in that race, and that was the 2018 Attorney General primary to replace Lisa Madigan. Here comes the brown line, and there were. I think I interviewed almost everybody that was running, about at least 6 of them, and they were all good. Remember that, D? They were just like smart people. They had policy positions on all the issues of the day. They could handle questions off the cuff. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of candidates that come in and their handlers will go, "Okay, what are you going to ask them?" You know, like they're a little wary about if they don't ask him. I'm like, don't ask that question. You know, he's not ready for that. But we just had wide-ranging conversations with all of them, and I was really impressed with Aaron Goldstein. He's a trial lawyer in Chicago, and he had thoughtful answers to all the issues of the day, and he was running for Attorney General. He was using that a springboard, his victory over Richard Mell for the Democratic committeeman. He defeated Richard Mell, and Richard Mell got the last laugh in this recent committeeman's race. Richard Mell had endorsed Iris Martinez. Did you see the letter that Richard Mell sent out? I don't know if did Aaron sent it to me. Richard Mell, I can go on and on about Richard Mell, a powerhouse in Democratic politics. I spent most of the 80s writing critical articles about him, and he spent most of the 80s and the 90s bad-mouthing me. But we kind of became frenemies in the last 10 years.
That hippie.
He came out to the Hideout show, our first Hideout. But that's exactly how he viewed me, this freaking hippie from the hippie newspaper. He's up to no good. Don't take his phone calls. And he kind of softened and mellowed on me over the years. But, so Aaron Goldstein beat Richard Mell, and then so Mell got his revenge by supporting Iris Martinez and sent out this letter that essentially depicted Aaron Goldstein as this radical leftist. It's kind of what the Biden bros did to Bernie. You know, this radical leftist who's out of touch with your values, your democratic values. Actually, it kind of reminds me of what the Republicans are going to do to Biden as well. That's so funny, D. We're going to be talking about this with David Faris. All you Biden lovers out there were bashing Bernie for being too lefty. Right now, I'm getting every day, I get more emails and texts from the Tea Party, Mitch McConnell, Newt Gingrich, bashing Joe Biden as being a leftist. They just took everything you said about Bernie Sanders, Biden bros, they took that and replaced it with stuff they're saying about Biden. So anyway, so Richard Mell used that tactic against AG, and Iris Martinez was victorious.
All right, let's talk more about J.B. Pritzker here. It says Governor J.B. Pritzker was on national TV yesterday calling for the federal government to send equipment that Illinois has requested. He slammed President Trump for not making greater use of the Defense Production Act via interview with CNN's Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo, by the way, announced that he has the coronavirus, right?
Yeah, he did. I saw that.
Sure doesn't look like it. He's at work talking to JP. What's up with that, huh?
Well, I mean, the symptoms vary from person to person. I mean, I'm happy. Aren't you happy that he's okay?
Yeah, but I mean,
he's
quit working.
He's doing it from the basement of his house. Like we're in the attic. He's in the basement. Bet he doesn't have to worry about a train going by. I bet he doesn't have to watch kids smoking reefer in the alley. I bet he doesn't have to worry about it getting too hot in here. Anyway, I'm wishing him nothing but the best.
Pritzker is among governors pleading for medical equipment from federal stockpile plagued by shortages and confusion. Anything you'd like to say about J.B. Pritzker, Ben?
Yeah, I really come to admire J.B. Pritzker. Everybody knows this. I'm really appreciating him tremendously in this. Well, first of all, I was appreciating him the way he was running the state leading into the pandemic. And this is sort of the difference between J.B. Pritzker and, let's say, Andrew Cuomo. When I look at how Andrew Cuomo governed New York, and I'm looking at it from afar, let me just repeat that. Here I am in my attic in Chicago, so I don't live in New York, but I follow New York politics. And he was kind of remind me of Rahm. He had that arrogance that Rahm did, that I'm smart, you're not attitude that Rahm had. And he was always going toward the middle, and he seemed to really enjoy inflaming, the lefty unions and sort of their equivalent of Carlos Ramirez Rosa types, the people that come on my show all the time, Stacey Davis Gates types. He'd love to sort of if they were irritated, he felt he was doing a good job. But since the pandemic hit, I've really been impressed by the way he's handled himself. And I've taken to watching his news briefings, and I've sort of put aside my disagreements with him in the past. Like, for instance, the Amazon issue. I talked about that yesterday. He was a big cheerleader for giving billions to Amazon. I've moved away from that because this is such a crisis, D. That's sort of like, a lot of the old rules that we were abiding by, the old norms, are out the window. And I feel that he's done an excellent job, Andrew Cuomo. With Pritzker, I too feel he's done an excellent job. But I liked where he was doing as governor before the pandemic hit in terms of like promoting the fair tax, raising the minimum wage, and standing up for women's right to choose, legalizing reefer. Good God, remember that? How could we forget? That was such a huge news story. Now everybody's getting high. So I'm really impressed with Pritzker. The man generates a certain amount of empathy for people, whether it's real or not, I don't know, but it comes out of him. And when those briefings, which are usually right after our show, so I get to hear the tail end of them, D. I just feel as though he kind of relates to everybody and what they're doing, even though he's a billionaire. You know what I mean? That's the irony. You would think he would be distant from ordinary human beings like you and me, dead broke podcasters, but he shows a tremendous amount of empathy. So big fan of J.B. Pritzker, D. Big fan of him indeed.
All right, everybody. And also, too, you mentioned Andrew Cuomo. There's pictures going around. I'm just wondering, nipple ring gate. Does Andrew Cuomo have nipple rings? That's what's going around. They're showing the picture of Andrew Cuomo talking, and you could see through his shirt.
How did I miss that?
Let's get it going on the live stream chat. Does Andrew Cuomo have nipple rings? What do you think, Ben?
I haven't seen it. Now, that's classic. Okay. I've been watching Tiger King so much that I missed that one. So I do not know if he has nipple rings. It's a very important question. Should be answered before the show is done.
Listening and you haven't seen it, go take a look at the picture, and we'll talk about it. Maybe at the end of the week we'll have a conclusion.
Let's see if David Faris has an opinion about that.
Oh, there we go. All right, and finally, we have 3 finalists chosen. Once again, this is city news that's very obscure, especially nowadays, but Ben loves talking about it. 3 finalists have been chosen for Chicago Police Department Superintendent. The next top cop will be either Aurora Police Chief Kristen Zeman, retired Dallas Police Chief David Brown, or the Chicago Police Department's fast-rising Deputy Chief Ernest Cato.
If these were normal times, and if we weren't in the middle of a life-threatening pandemic, this would be a huge story, D. This would be something that probably we would get a week's worth of material out of, because the decision the mayor makes over who's the police chief is one of those, again, symbolic moves that shows how much power the mayor has. And so the setup we have for determining who the police chief is just lends itself to sort of this drama. There's this buildup where there's 3 people are nominated, or they're put on a short list, and then the mayor evaluates them all, and then the media goes out, and there's the papers will do profiles of each of them. So, like there's the Aurora police chief, Christian Zeman. They would go out to Aurora and interview people in Aurora, and they would talk to community activists in Aurora, and they'd look for dirt on her that they could throw in the, well, she's really good here, but then there's this issue, blah, 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 blah. And so they would do that for all of the candidates. So by the time they were done with it, you'd feel like you knew them. It was almost like American Idol or something. Now you're getting ready to pick your favorite. And then the mayor, in this case, she would pick her favorite and that's her favorite. So this is the situation we have. It's sort of a ritual in the city of Chicago. It goes back. I can remember Mayor Daley putting us through this back in the late 90s, early 00s. And the Rahm threw it out the window, if you recall, when it came to Eddie Johnson, because he was given a list of 3. I think it's the police board that given you the list of 3 nominees, and he just said, the heck with that, threw him out the window and just picked Eddie Johnson, who wasn't even on the list, hadn't even applied. See, that's Rahm. If there's a rule, I'll break it. I can do it because I'm smart and you're not. And then, of course, Eddie Johnson, he got thrown under the bus by Lori Lightfoot when allegedly he lied to her about drinking in a bar with a woman who wasn't his wife. Think of the things we were preoccupied with. How long did we have fun with Johnson Gate? I mean, it wasn't any fun to Eddie Johnson, but we must have talked about Johnson Gate for a week, right, D?
Oh, yeah.
Johnson Gate, Smollett Gate, the good old days before the pandemic. Anyway, I to this day feel that Eddie Johnson got the raw end of the deal. I just saw this in the, there was a Tribune, a column in the Tribune today.
That's Mayor Rahm on the Brown line.
Take a chill pill, man.
Mayor Rahm driving that brown line, writing essays, writing books. He's a busy guy. Anyway, so there was an essay in today's Tribune about extolling the virtues of Lori Lightfoot, saying she's tough. People, Chicagoans love tough mayors. God, do they love tough mayors. Saying how tough she is, and using as an example, D, how she fired Eddie Johnson for allegedly lying to her. And I'm like, I still think Eddie Johnson got the raw end of that deal because, he came in at a time when the Chicago really needed some credibility with the police department, and I think he helped Rahm and Lori Lightfoot in that way. Anyway, so yeah, we'll be talking a lot about this, but of course, under the pandemic, it's a page 4 story in the Sun-Times, and I don't even know if it's, though the Tribune did have it, it's like page 8 or something.
All right, let's go to everyone in the live stream chat. We do have a story about mail-in balloting. We're going to talk about that in minutes here, but let's go to our friends in the live stream chat. Let's see here. Oh, Brianna is weighing in on nipple ring gate. Brianna says, maybe Cuomo just has like 4 nipples. You got to see this picture, Ben.
All right, let me look at the picture.
Yeah, you got a phone. You can look it up. You're looking around. You have a phone.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right,
put it in there.
All right, hold on, calm down.
All
let me
right,
get rid
let's
of the
see
thing
here.
that's there.
Oh, Ben, it looks like we got a new friend here on the Ben Joravsky Show live stream chat. He says this guy should STFU, which is foul language, and stop shilling. This guy thinks you're shilling for Andrew Cuomo, Ben. He says, how much are they paying you to spread misinformation?
Wow. That's oh, wait, hold on. I'm looking at I will deal with that. Oh, hold on 1 second. Let me just look at this.
I'll pull up Cuomo.
Yeah, that must be a Trump supporter. All right, hold on. I'm looking at Andrew Cuomo. Hold on. I'll deal with that guy in a little bit. Hold on.
We're not
Andrew
posting a
Cuomo.
show.
Hold on, Andrew. Well, you were the one who said, all right, images. Here we go. Andrew Cuomo nipple. Let's see what comes up. All right, this is called high-class texting, except I misspelled nipple. Here we go, D. All right, nipple piercing. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a big deal. Images.
You guys having fun? All right, Kyle weighed in. He says, when the brown line passes, I am imagining Ben pumping his fist up and down, similar to passing an 18-wheeler to get them to honk their horns.
Yeah, no, I am doing that. I don't think he has nipple rings, either that or it's a bad image. All right, getting back to the guy that weighed in and said that I was too nice on Cuomo. I spent the introduction. D, I can't even get the words out. I'm having a Kenny Davis moment. The introduction to my comments about how Andrew Cuomo was dealing with the crisis talked about all my political differences with the guy, but how I appreciated how he was handling the crisis. How is that being too easy on him? What do you want me to say?
I don't know.
I mean, New York is under siege. New York is...
Oh, by the way, that guy's name's Roddy.
Roddy?
Yeah,
Okay.
Hot Rod.
Roddy Reagan. Roddy, I love Trump. It's like New York's under siege. Andrew Cuomo comes in every day and gives a briefing where he lays out just the terms of the crisis, pleads for his state, tries to navigate the choppy waters of dealing with Donald Trump. Roddy, I know you're a huge fan of Trump probably, but the reality is that Donald Trump is a very mean-spirited guy, and if you don't kiss his ring, he'll deny your state the aid it needs. That's how the governors are playing this game. He turned against the governor of Michigan because she was critical of him. For a while, he was down on Pritzker. Then Pritzker started buttering him up. So Trump makes nice phone calls to him. Then they send masks. Turns out they're the wrong masks. Okay. So he's going to screw that up anyway. But the reality is that this is just what Cuomo has to deal with on a daily basis. On top of that, his brother has coronavirus. So they ask him questions about every conceivable element of the crisis. So, for instance, when the Republicans are going around saying, "Hey, maybe it's good that the old people die," it's okay. It's only a disease that affects old people. We'd rather have old people die than have an economy go into a depression. Cuomo's asked about that, and he talked about his mother being 88. He goes, "I don't think my mother's expendable." So he's on the front lines on a daily basis, and I respect the job he's done. I respect the job that Pritzker's done. I would have more respect for Donald Trump if he wasn't a freaking lunatic, giving out one piece of information today that contradicts the piece of information he gave out the next day, sending out tweets constantly attacking Democrats. By the way, I recommend Democrats do the same to him. That's the only way you're going to beat the guy. So, listen, the reason I respect Cuomo is the way he's handling the crisis now. I think even Republicans in the state of Illinois would agree with me, maybe not Roddy, that he's done a good job. But, yeah, I had my political disagreements with Cuomo. I was for Cynthia Nixon. She ran against him in the primary the last time, a working families candidate. But that was then. This is now. It's a new time, D. I got to give credit to Andrew Cuomo for doing a great job in a crisis.
So there you are, Roddy. We answered your question there. All right, Kyle, good friend Kyle weighed in. What's going on, Kyle? We asked how everybody was doing. Kyle says, "How am I doing? Well, every day, self-isolation. I'm turning into a different Nicolas Cage character. Vampire Kiss Nick Cage, Wicker Man Nick Cage. What are that? Mandy Nick Cage, Raising Arizona Nick Cage, Face Off Nick Cage."
I've seen like half of those. I think I've seen all those movies. I can't remember. I definitely remember. What was the one? The first one he said?
He said, wait a minute.
It was about an ambulance?
Vampire's Kiss.
Vampire's Kiss. I can't remember. Was that the one where he's the ambulance driver?
I don't think so.
Oh, man, that was an intense movie.
Why would a movie about an ambulance driver
Because it was like at night.
Kiss?
Yeah, I know, but it was at night, and it was... it was like everybody was diseased and drugged out. Yeah, Nick Cage, I can dig that. I can understand why you feel that way. I was just talking to our good friend Monroe Anderson. We're going to do the interview with him in about an hour or so, and he was saying he hasn't gotten out in 16 days. I was like, "Come on, Monroe, you got to go at least step into your yard, get some fresh air every now and then. You can't just sit inside."
By the way, later tonight, be on the lookout for that. We're going to talk with Monroe Anderson and drop it a little later. Mm-hmm. Michael weighed in. He said, "Just tuned in. Sounds like Ben is answering questions from Russian bots."
That is so true. Excellent. Yeah, Roddy's a Russian. I said he was a Trump supporter. He's a Putin bot. Good one. Yeah. I mean, obviously, they're already undercutting Cuomo.
Brianna says, "Tiger King, what a hot mess."
Yeah, it is. I wonder, has she watched it? Does she say has she been seeing it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure she's seen it. She's at home doing nothing, got Netflix. You know what I mean? By the way, I'm more of the movie. You ever seen the movie Knowing with Nick Cage?
I don't think so.
I'm turning into Knowing Nick Cage.
What happens in Knowing?
Oh, he's like real big into like conspiracies. Like, oh, if you connect the dots, this and that. Oh, gee. I'm turning into that guy.
I'm writing that down. That actually sounds like a good movie. Raising Arizona. Have you ever seen Raising Arizona?
Oh, hell yeah. John Goodman?
Coen Brother movie. I think it was the first one they ever made from the late 80s.
Yeah. That's an awesome movie.
Wait, John Goodman's in Raising Arizona?
Yeah, a young John Goodman.
I don't remember that.
Big curly hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just picture him holding a bunch of toilet paper running down the street. Nick Cage. That's what I think of on Raising Arizona.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some mail-in balloting news here. Governor J.B. Pritzker said on Tuesday that he supports the idea of mail-in ballots for elections. Pritzker said, quote, "I've been an advocate for mail-in ballots for a long time." He said this during his daily briefing about COVID-19. He continues saying, "I don't think we're going to have to look at for the general election the idea that we may have to move to a significant amount or all mail-in ballots, or at least give people the opportunity to do that. It's something we're going to look at." He said that the General Assembly would ultimately need to make a decision on that idea. Ben Joravsky, your thoughts here, mail-in balloting.
Yeah, we have to head there. Absolutely. I mean, Washington, the state of Washington is way ahead of the game on that. And I'm not sure as Oregon is ahead of the game as well. But yeah, we have to head there. And, I was having this conversation with Maya just yesterday, the mail-ins that are coming in. Already more and more people obviously did it in this election because of the coronavirus fear. And I think the percentage of voters in Chicago, the turnout is up to 35%. I make fun of that. 35% is terrible. But considering that it was like in the 20s in 2012, it's quite an improvement. And in 2012, the argument, that was when Barack Obama was running for re-election in the primary, the argument was it was a nice day. So people didn't vote because it was such a nice day. They had other things to do. So in this case, of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so people don't vote because it's a nasty day, as I pointed out. There's always an excuse for Chicagoans not to vote, but 35% is almost respectable, D. I mean, that's 35% was what the turnout, I think, was for the mayor's race, and we weren't in a pandemic there. So to get 35% is almost respectable considering how scared everybody was. I mean, we've talked about this, the mixed messages that were going out from our leaders. We're all praising Lori Lightfoot and Governor Pritzker, but they were sending out mixed messages at that stage. Go vote, have an election. But by the way, stay 6 feet apart. Don't go to restaurants. Don't go to bars. Mixed messages, and that's part of the problem with this entire pandemic. So yeah, I definitely think we have to start doing mail-ins, and I think we could get Jacob Kaplan on to talk about that, the procedure, the protocol, how you can defend against fraud. And by the way, this will be a huge issue coming up for the November.
I mean, can we get some smart people together to since we got nothing going on, to just figure out online voting once and for all? Just knock it out of the park here,
Yeah, well,
it's silly. The year is 2020.
Yeah.
I bank online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You love Venmo.
Everybody Venmos. You know what I mean? If I could trust my money online, let's figure out a way to just do online voting.
Yeah, let's get the
that
smart
would really
people
just
working.
nip all of this at the bud.
Yeah. Then, of course, the fear is that the Russians.
Oh, because they're just not doing it now, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but your point, you make a good point. Should be some smart people in the world that figure this out. You're absolutely correct. But we're going to definitely move away, I believe, from the old school where there's an election day, you go to polling places. It's very cumbersome. It's very expensive. And when you have a pandemic, which may be around for a while, it definitely could be an issue in November. It's scary and frightening. So, yeah, I think the sooner the better the state of Illinois can look into this would be good for all.
It's just silly to me. Let's figure it out. Let's vote online, everybody. Just get it over with. We have a Nick Cage update. Shout out to Kyle. Kyle says the Nick Cage ambulance driver movie is the Scorsese movie Bringing Out the Dead.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. He was
Vampire's Kiss?
Oh, no, I see. Yeah, that was the one I saw. Very good. Who knew that? Kyle, thank you very much. That was Scorsese. That was like a weird Scorsese movie that I got into way too much. A really freaky movie. And it kind of reminds me of what's going on today because it was late at night and he was carrying all these sick people around. And it just felt like he didn't get enough sleep. He looked like he himself was diseased and about to die and fall over any moment. So that's why I thought of like a vampire type flick, but obviously it was a different movie.
Oh, and finally, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, no public events scheduled. Obviously, she's staying home and saving lives.
Oh, Lori.
Tying run at second, 2 out, Palmero.
Tell you what, if my White Sox win, you got to stay home.
Uribe charges, throws, out! and the White Sox have won the World Series.
My White Sox. Lori, you're from Ohio. You're an Indians fan. Don't pretend you're a White Sox fan. No, she's a huge Bear fan. Like a legitimate Bears fan. And I remember when we had her in the interview, and she was like handling Bears questions, like she knew her Bears stuff really well. So maybe she is a legitimate White Sox fan. She's getting a lot of love these days. There's a column in the Tribune today, D. Man, I've never seen so much love.
Really?
Yes.
From the Tribune?
The Tribunal weighed in on Lori's behalf. And when I read the column, I was like, man, this person really loves Lori. But it gets at the heart of what I was saying. People in Chicago love a tough mayor. You know, they love Daley. Even when he would erupt and say something nasty and stupid, like when he threatened my dear friend Mick Dumke to stick a gun up Mick Dumke's butt. He actually did that. People, he's emotional. He cares about what he believes in. People in Chicago love their mayors to be tough. And Lori Lightfoot was tough. And they apparently loved it when she went on that she got really mad at everybody. What was that, last Thursday? And she brought out the pictures to prove her point. So, yeah, Lori Lightfoot, she's pretty popular in the city now. What does Roddy say about her? Roddy going to weigh in? Is Putin's bots weighing in?
Where you at, Roddy?
Come on, weigh in on Lori Lightfoot. You got so much to say about Cuomo.
All right, well, as we wait for Roddy's response, we're going to go ahead and take a break here. Weigh in with your thoughts on the live stream chat. David Faris is going to be coming up. We got a while till David Faris. I don't know.
A couple items before that, so we're good.
All right, hang tight, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffemanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from Ben's attic.
Great article in today's Sun-Times that I wanted to share with people. And Dennis was talking about how I'm feeling the need, excuse me, to have normal news in the middle of the pandemic. Normal news, the kind that we used to discuss all the time on the show and not feel guilty about it. You know, like we should be discussing the end of civilization as we know it. Instead, let's focus on who's going to be the next police chief of the city of Chicago. So this story under the category of normal news was on page 15 of the Sun-Times, and the headline is Corruption Reform on Ice as virus stymies commission. All right, here we go. So I'm trying not to laugh. You know, it mentions the virus, but this is pretty. This is only an Illinois story. Corruption busting is the latest casualty of the coronavirus in Illinois. Illinois House Majority Leader Greg Harris and State Senator L.G. Sims, both from Chicago, chairman of the Joint Commission on Ethics and Lobbying Reform, said Tuesday that the pandemic has forced them to miss a deadline in their efforts. The commission was required to release a report by Tuesday with recommendations on how to end entrenched corruption in Illinois. But as the COVID-19 crisis has temporarily shut down sessions of the General Assembly, it has also stymied the work of the commission. Quote, "We have completed our meetings, heard from stakeholders, and are working through the proposals that have been put before us," the two Chicago Democrats said in a joint statement. However, due to the encircling crisis, more time will be necessary to complete our work. This commission was established by the legislature in November, and it's tasked with proposing ways to reform state government in the wake of scandals that have rocked state, county, and municipal governments. Harris and Sims said they had hoped to pass ethics reform legislation in the spring legislative session, which is scheduled to adjourn May 31st, but because lawmakers have not met since March 5th, and the governor extended the state stay-at-home order until April 30th, they could become increasingly difficult. I had a lot of fun with this back in the days before the pandemic, Dee, because I just thought it was funny that they needed a special commission to come up with new laws to tell us what we already knew, which is that bribery is illegal. So, you know, most of the corruption that has occurred over, the last year or so dealt with either legislators either taking bribes or giving bribes to get various bills passed. And they knew it was illegal when they were doing it. You know, that's why the only way to catch them was to have people wearing wires to entrap them, essentially. You know, get them to admit that they're doing something that they all know is illegal, and they speak in code he's got to come up with the cookies I need to feed my family, or whatever kind of code they talk in, because it's illegal. They knew it was illegal when they were doing it. You don't need a special commission. You don't need new laws. But that's how it is in Illinois and Chicago. It's like every year there's more corruption. Every year there's more scandals. The paper's filled with stories about it, usually involving my beloved Democrats, who just cannot seem to walk that straight line. That just like the whole culture of corruption is so embedded in the mindset of Chicagoans. And our politicians, the money they get isn't enough. They need more money. They're dealing with wealthy people all the time, and they want to be big shots like the lobbyists that they're dealing with. So they got a little extra cash. Or maybe they have a gambling problem. So many of them I noticed, like William Beavers, the former Cook County Board Commissioner, the former alderman of the 7th Ward. He had a gambling problem. A lot of these people have a gambling problem. The head...
No one to hold them and no one to fold them, Beavers.
Yeah, and stay away from the casinos. Barbara Byrd Bennett, who went down, was the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools. She got caught up in a corruption scandal. And remember the email that she sent to her cronies in that deal was she's got tuitions to pay, grandkids' college tuitions to pay, and casinos to visit. So apparently she had a gambling problem too. Anyway, they all know it's illegal. They all know it's wrong. So if you just create more rules, there'll just be more rules to be broken. Because they're going to break them. The issue is whether you're going to enforce the laws that already exist. So I got a kick out of it when they set up that commission in the first place to come up with a reform for something that they already knew was wrong and that they shouldn't be doing at all. They came up with that, just to show everybody, well, we're really taking this seriously. We're very concerned about this practice. It's been going on forever in the state of Illinois. I think the number of aldermen in Chicago, I think it's 30 of them, have gone to jail since the 1970s, various corruption schemes. So they all know it's illegal to begin with. They do it because they want to get away with it, because they're addicted to a fast life, because they're looking for a fast buck. But they're going to have a commission. And now the commission, D, their work is put on hold because of the coronavirus. It's of all the excuses that I've heard, I'm saying, the dog ate my homework. The coronavirus, we can't come out with the commission report. So no report yet. I saw this thing. I had a chuckle. I go, all right, well, I'll have to wait a little while. Wait a little longer to see what they come up with, what recommendations they come up with. I know there's probably specific rules you could write that like extend the amount of time that a legislator has to wait before he or she can become a lobbyist and lobby his colleagues. Maybe you have to specify certain rules of behavior. But let's face it, folks, most of the real bad stuff that they're going to jail for, they know it's illegal. You don't need a new law for it. But anyway, so they had to put that on hold. So I thought that was a pretty funny story, D. And then this one as well. Did you see Dear Abby today, D, by any chance?
No.
I was singing it.
I missed it just today. I usually catch it every day. Not today.
Dear Abby fan.
Shucks.
That's why I was singing John Prine. The great John Prine has a song called Dear Abby, which Dennis knew. Anyway, Dear Abby's, this is my attempt to find some normal in the age of the pandemic. So Dear Abby has her April Fool's Day letters. And these are letters that people try to sneak by her to show that, see if they can get some really weird, obscure complaint through, and that she will deal with it legitimately. So here are some of them. This one here. Dear Abby, for more than 50 years, my wife has had a close relation with a stuffed panda bear she received when she was 8. His name is Daffy, and he sits by our fireplace and pretty much rules the house. She makes him talk and takes him places. When I make a mistake, like not hanging up my jacket, I said that Daffy told me not to do it. She gets mad, and I get a lecture from Daffy about how he isn't to blame, and he never makes a mistake. I am joking when I blame Daffy, but my wife and Daffy don't find it funny. Am I wrong to make a joke, or should I not blame Daffy? And this is from Panda, and she writes, Dear Panda, it appears that you are not one, but 3 Daffys in your household. If you can't bear what's going on, stop joking. In other words, she saw through it. But this is the one I'll close with. Dear Abby, when I put my hand on my wife's knee at the dinner table last night, she blurted out the name of another man. What do you make of this? Curious in California. Dear Curious, unless the name she blurted was Alfredo and you are eating pasta, I suspect you may have a problem. Happy April Fool's Day, everyone. Just my attempt, folks, to find a little normal in the pandemic. We're going to take a break, and we're going to bring David Faris on right after this.
Correct. That's correct. Correct.
Take a chill pill, man.
Like a fool. Love this room. Like a fool.
Nearly 1,000 miles.
Love this room.
I just biked around Lake Michigan.
Yes, that's billion with a B.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? All right, we'll be with the Ben. Has David Faris got back to you, Ben?
Not yet.
All right, hang tight, everybody. David Faris on the way. Weigh in on the Ben Joravsky Show live stream chat. Got to give a shout out to the Curls, by the way. We've been playing their music like crazy ever since that whole copyright thing. Thanks again to the Curls. Go check out their album Bounce House. They have other albums as well. Just YouTube the Curls, put in band after that, and you'll find them. Mick Fansler, a good friend of the show. Go check out that Benny J bonus interview we had with Mick Fansler and other Benny J bonus interviews, by the way. Turns out we've been doing these bonus interviews for like a year, so we have quite an archive of shows. So go check that out. And, you got nothing going on. You're quarantined. We can provide as much entertainment as we can here. The Ben Joravsky Show on both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. David Faris coming up, everybody. David Faris, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, cool. Hang tight. I'm going to turn you down here. We'll do the intro and we'll get started, all right?
All right, sounds good. Sounds good.
Excellent. Here we go. David Faris, moments away. It is Wednesday, April 1st, and live from Ben's house. This is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour, one man and one man only, professor, author, and dear friend of the Ben Joravsky Show, Mr. David Faris. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
David Faris, a regular on our show, Roosevelt University political science professor, views the world much as I do, and when it comes to Democrats, should behave more like Republicans if they expect to win. So many Democrats are so naive. But we'll hold off the discussion, David, of Joe Biden's campaign for a moment. How are you doing in this in the midst of the virus? You're staying at home, of course. How are you hanging in there?
I'm at a beach in Daytona. I don't know what you guys are doing.
I thought you were going to say you're at church in Tampa.
That's right. No, I'm home. You know, I've got a 1-year-old here, so it's kind of an all hands on deck situation. My wife and I are fighting, caring for him, was trying to do our jobs. And, I don't know. It wasn't great the first week. And then I kind of accepted my new life as an indentured servant to a toddler. And I kind of understand how Stockholm syndrome works now. It's like, you're just like, okay.
Are you obsessively following the news? Are you one of those kinds of people that when you're locked in your house, you just have, the TV on all the time, listening to all the updates?
I mostly I mostly have Twitter sort of plugged into a vein, and I read the updates about the disease and what's happening with our sclerotic government in response to it, and but you got to tune it out for at least a few hours a day.
Yeah.
You're gonna go. So, and it's new features of life are like I call my parents now every single day on FaceTime, so because they're in their 70s and they're lonely, and so it's trying to stay in touch with as many people as you can, and that takes up a significant part of the day.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the issues of the day. When I talked to you earlier today, you said one of the top things in your mind are how right-wing pundits are suddenly turning into scientists, and it's very bizarre messaging that's coming from Republicans these days, David. On one hand, they want to praise Trump at every chance they can, which means criticizing Democrats. And so to do that, they find themselves in a position, and these are even some of the more quote-unquote respectable Republicans find themselves in a position, where they have to say we're exaggerating the virus.
Right.
Talk about this a little bit.
Yeah. It's been such whiplash, because the president goes back and forth between, one day it's 200,000 deaths are a best case scenario, and we're going to lock the country down for a month. And the next day it's, we're going to be open for Easter. I think he's deeply vulnerable to the last person that he talks to. And people send him these articles by these right wingers who don't know what they're talking about, So I don't know if you read, but apparently this New York Times op-ed by Richard Epstein, who's a law professor, was very influential inside the Trump administration, and he had said we won't have any more than 500 deaths, and the whole thing's just a massive overreaction. He had his own. I'm not sure I really understand the argument, but some sort of social evolutionary theory of viruses. This is a law professor, right? Like he doesn't know anything about viruses.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's really irresponsible for the New York Times to publish stuff like this. And it's also just sort of mind-blowing that people would listen to a law professor. I don't know if you saw this piece yesterday or the day before by Bill Bennett.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And it was, headlined on Real Clear Politics and, time for a second opinion about the virus, and they cherry pick sort of random pieces of data from different countries or different places to make the argument that the death rate is so low that, we should be fine going back to normal after 14 days. And it's just, there's been a lot of stuff like this going around. I remember this Medium post from about 10 days ago, just some like random Silicon Valley tech bro who put together his own graphs and stuff. And was, the theme is that we're overreacting. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that I think a couple of things are going on here. One is just, it's just denialism. It's just like a long-standing sort of conservative skepticism of science in general, expertise in general, mistrust of like expert systems where you kind of have to take people's word for it because you don't really understand the underlying parameters of what, the conclusions that they're drawing. And so that is applied to all kinds of things. That's why there's more anti-vaxxers on the Republican side. That's why there's so much climate skepticism because they just don't, I guess they just don't trust, scientific modeling unless it's done by a washed out, drug addicted former family values guy, so Bill Bennett. The other thing I think is like, it just really seems to me like the Republicans are trying to hedge their bets in terms of the way that this is going to go. Mm-hmm. So you can now haul out enough quotes from Trump where he seems to be taking it seriously that if things go really wrong, he can say, listened to me from mid-March. We're in World War II footing. We're mobilized. This is a common enemy. The few times where he sounded, as close to presidential as this guy can possibly get. And then you juxtapose that with, kind of continued statements about how it's not that serious, or Jared Kushner running like a parallel operation to fight the virus alongside Pence, who's Mike Pence. We're all talking, where's Joe Biden? Like, where's Mike Pence? And so it's like, if it doesn't turn out to be that bad, they can also come back and haul out a bunch of statements where they express their own skepticism about the worst case models of the disease and things like that. So it's, as much as anything, it just feels like politics is being played. And of course, you want your public officials to ask difficult questions when their advisors or public health officials tell them to do something. You don't want them to just say yes to anything, right? But the degree to which decisions are being placed in the hands of people who don't understand the sort of underlying dynamics of transmissible diseases is really disturbing.
Yeah.
And it's led to a bunch of red states that still haven't done what they need to do to put a stop to the trajectory of the growth. I see Florida finally issued a stay-at-home order today, but it's April. This is 2 weeks after a lot of the rest of the country did this stuff, and there's still a few states that refuse to do it. So, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a very combustible situation to me.
Well, there's a certain level of madness that's at play here. Now, you mentioned William Bennett. For some of our younger listeners, William Bennett was a operative for the Republican Party going back to the Reagan years. He was, I don't know what is it, they called him the drug czar during the Reagan years, and he was leading the war on drugs. And I read that essay, and I'm really stretching the word essay to apply it to what he wrote, that drivel he wrote that you alerted to me, because until you told me about it, I did not know it existed. So I read it. And William Bennett, again, he wrote a bunch of books in the late 80s and early 90s, and he would be talking about how Democrats have embraced a virtueless society, that they had no rules that govern them. It's just unbelievable how people have pivoted in the age of Trump. So he had these book of virtues. I'm not making this up, David. They were bestsellers. Then he had children's books of virtues, and he was like, he took poems from the past that were all about, honoring the family, honoring marriage, honoring your promises. You don't lie. Okay, this guy is now he's fully embraced Donald Trump, who lies on a regular basis, was having affairs when his wife, just after she gave birth, has bragged about how he ditched his service in the United States and in the Vietnam War because he had bone spurs. So he's a complete and total, the epitome of everything that William Bennett supposedly believed in back in the day. And now William Bennett has joined the team. So I guess the Book of Virtues is going to rip up the Book of Virtues. But the part that killed me about that essay, he said we should not declare wars. These are not real wars. We should watch our rhetoric. David, this is the man who was leading the war on drugs throughout the 80s that had a very real impact on thousands of people. We're still struggling with the impact. The utter hypocrisy of the Republican Party is something that, yeah. So how do you deal with it?
It's like, there's just like nothing you can do to get yourself sort of banished from polite society on the right, and Bill Bennett is a disgraced person, and he was leading the charge for Clinton's impeachment. Remember in '98 because we can't have you should go back and read some of the stuff from that time period. It's unbelievable. We can't have somebody that lies in office and public. And here he is, kind of carrying water for Trump, which is bad enough. But then, who gives this guy a platform to pontificate about disease trajectories? So this article is written by him and some talk show host at the Claremont Institute. Neither one of them knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's all about this mania about getting the economy restarted, rather than kind of facing the reality that the government needs to borrow like infinite amounts of cash to keep people whole until the economy can be restarted. And so it's like no serious person in the medical community or the epidemiology community believes any of this stuff. The models are contingent. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But the places where we've seen exponential growth, it's gotten really bad, really quick. It's much worse than the flu. If you've ever talked to this thing, it's a dreadful disease. And so the fact that we've grafted this weird partisan politics onto a national crisis is concerning, and it goes back to the president himself, in the sense that if the president has been speaking about this seriously and soberly since February and had taken it seriously, there wouldn't be a partisan division about this, right? Because the Democrats would trust the scientists who tell them, even if we had the lockdown early before it even looked bad, I think most Democratic voters would be inclined to say, yeah, that was, that's the right thing to do. I don't think they would have attacked Trump for that. And then he would have gotten his own base on board rather than like sort of priming them for this endless skepticism of the responses to the crisis. He himself created what I think will be an enduring partisan split in how we view this crisis. And so, I saw a little bit more hopeful data a couple of days ago in a poll that showed most Republicans are also staying at home. So that's good. But it's, I think that they also don't want to face up to the fact that the U.S. kind of twiddled its thumbs for 6 weeks or so. When we should have been mobilizing stockpiles and using the Defense Production Act to get ourselves up to speed with ventilators and protective equipment for our doctors. And, really, honestly, just almost in a criminal fashion, just goosing the stock market with false information that was they knew was destined to not hold up. For the life of me, I don't understand why Larry Kudlow was going on TV in late February saying that the virus is contained and the stock market's going to keep going up. They all knew better, and so again, here's politics. It just seems like they want to blame the stock market crash on overzealous lockdown measures that they either endorse or undermine depending on what their political calculations are for that day. And it's really disgusting.
So and by the way, you haven't got into the pastor in Florida, Reverend Rodney Harris Brown, who, in violation of like the order of the sheriff, held a Sunday service where he encouraged people to show up, and not a word from Trump. And so this is where I think actually Trump is afraid of his base. On the local level, I had many conversations, David, back in the 90s about how Mayor Richard Daley, for all his power, was a little afraid of the police department and didn't want to cross the police department on many issues. I'm watching Trump with the evangelicals, and I think that may be the one community that he's afraid to in any way criticize. Here, Reverend Falwell, Jerry Falwell Jr., inviting everybody back to Liberty University. How many?
So crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, but not a word out of Trump. When the Republican congressman, whose name escapes me at the moment, from Kentucky, I believe it was, called for a voice vote of the stimulus package, Massey. That's it. He forced all the Congress people to come back to the Capitol to pass it. Trump blasted him on Twitter, but not a word about Falwell or this nutcase pastor in Florida. So I do think he's intimidated by the evangelicals. So what can the Democrats do?
They're the highest turnout group in the Republican coalition. They need every one of these evangelicals to turn out for them. So if you shut down, you notice that Florida's order today did not that it designated religious services as essential. So churches can remain open in Florida. And that's like not an accident. They don't want to shut these things down because they're afraid. They're afraid that this group will insanity running through the right now, where you remember that the lieutenant governor of Texas went on TV and said he would like to sacrifice himself for to preserve America.
Yeah.
He's like, I think that all of the elderly people in America would be happy to die to preserve the America that we know. And it's like, I don't think he has talked to my parents, who would not like to do that, or anybody. It's just such. My colleague of the week wrote a piece about how it's exposed our contempt for the elderly. A lot of the discourse about this, like the idea that somebody that's 70 is just like, well, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. I have a good life. And it's like, cause most people get to 50 don't feel that way, They're like, I got another 15 years. I want them. I want those years, I don't want to die alone in a hospital so that the stock market the Applebee's doesn't go bankrupt or whatever, So it's just, that's the kind of madness that you could see taking hold in certain religious communities, where they say, like, we have to preserve, the destiny of America granted us by God by sacrificing a certain number of people. I'm not a religious scholar, but the idea of sacrifice kind of runs pretty deep here. And so you just have all of these factors together, the red states that lock down too late, this weird fanaticism about dying for the stock market, Trump's dithering, it's like the mixed messages coming out of the White House, the fact that a lot of these important processes have been subcontracted to the stupidest people on the face of the earth. Just seems like, if you look at these charts of our trajectory, it's the worst in the world. It's the worst in the whole world. And that doesn't mean I'm pessimistic that we're not going to get under control or something, but it does seem like this president is going to be responsible for tens of thousands of excess deaths that could have been prevented.
So how forcefully do you think Democrats should express what you just said? Nancy Pelosi, I think, a couple days ago said something along the lines of, while he fiddles, people are dying, which was as close to holding him accountable for what's going on in this country right now. How aggressive should the Democrats, in your humble opinion, be in dealing with Trump?
You want to take the level of aggression right now and then unflatten the curve. Like, it needs to be exponentially higher in terms of how the party is responding to this, like, really malign and deadly incompetence. And it's not just about the election. It's about sort of forcing the hands of the few reasonable people left in D.C. to do the things that they need to do. So there's a political element, which is you have to at least try to nail Trump to the wall about this. And about what Biden has been saying. Just so we don't know if we want to criticize the president. It's Democrats are adopting this weird post 9/11. Don't criticize George Bush attitude about this. Which, in a couple of months following 9/11, maybe made some political sense because Bush was at 90%. But this yes can't even get to 50% in the middle of a crisis where Trudeau is at 67%. Even Macron is popular again in France. My God, miracles. Leaders around the world have seen 20 points in popularity. This guy's sitting on 3% because he's just so hated by half the country, and it's just no cost to pay to escalate your rhetoric a little bit. At least try to every day they should be identifying failures of the president. They should be taking his words at these ridiculous press conferences and making them into ads immediately. Like a couple of days ago when he accused doctors in New York of stealing masks. Picture this. I'm not an ad man, Ben, but I mean, picture this. On the one hand, half the screen, you've got Trump accusing doctors of stealing masks. The other part of the screen, you've got interviews with doctors outside of these ICUs talking about the mayhem and the carnage that they're seeing and the sacrifices that they're making for their families to keep people alive. And just juxtapose the clownish idiocy of the president of the United States with the people who are doing the frontline work of saving thousands of people from what is really a quite unpleasant death. Right? You don't want to die from this thing. So,
well,
I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why that's not happening.
No, you're making a compelling point on two fronts. On one hand, there's a political argument. I'll get to that. But on the other hand, there's a matter of saving lives. And you should not hesitate to criticize Donald Trump's insanity because it's endangering people. It's endangering those doctors and those nurses and the medical staffers who have to go to work and confront it and deal with sick people, even though they themselves are exposed to the disease, and then they bring it to their families. So the fear that they have is real. And if you pretend that we're kind of like all in it together behind our president, even though he's a lunatic and he is behaving in a way that is endangering lives, then you are in fact complicit in endangering lives. So I just think from a health standpoint.
Yeah.
And yet it seems like so many.
From a health standpoint, you know, no, it's just frustrating. And it's like, you know, the way that the president is obviously seeing this is the only mask that this idiot can hold in his head is the mask of the electoral college. Yeah. So what he sees right now is he sees a bunch of really bad situations in big cities and blue states. And he thinks that that's going to be the end of it. You know, like the thing's going to run its course in New York. It's never going to get into, you know, I don't know, like the oil patches of Texas or something. And he can, you know, the way the conservatives treated AIDS in the 80s, you know, which is like, well, it's just affecting a bunch of people that we hate anyway, so why take it that seriously? And I think that they think that they can get away with this. And Democrats should be, Democrats in Congress, first of all, should not be on recess right now. It's bananas. They should figure out a way to vote remotely, pass a bill, get it done, so that they don't have to come into the chamber and infect each other, which they have obviously been doing for weeks, and get to work, shoring up the economy. You know, like Canada just passed a bill that extended these 2,000 Canadian dollar payments to every citizen for 4 months, right? And we wrote a $1,200 check to everybody for 1 month, right? Which is not even going to cover rent in our city, right? It's just an obviously sort of inadequate response. They should be out there every day calling on the president to authorize the Defense Production Act to ramp up production of ventilators and masks and things like that. They should be calling out any sort of injustice in the way that the existing resources are being distributed. You know, like Florida gets everything that it has asked for, and Illinois has like 10% of what it asked for. You know, we think that's an accident. It's not an accident. Like he's treating blue states differently than red states, or purple, particularly swing states. You know, Arizona got everything they wanted too. And I'm not, you know, not resentful of Arizona and Florida. Like everybody should get what they need. It's just like, you know, this is just such an easy political choice to make. That is, you know, you want to get the right things done and passed, and so you know, compromises are going to have to be made. You don't want to be sticking, you know, provisions in the bills about, you know, like card check or whatever, like stuff that we would like to see happen. It's going to have to wait, because anything that's passed right now needs to be either directly relevant to the crisis or about safeguarding the November election. But you know, the fact that, you know, Schumer and Pelosi, they are what they are, right? And they are not built for this kind of public combat that the president is undertaking. And so what's happening is that, you know, I'm on the president's email list, you know, so I get their rapid responses every single day. And they're better at it than we are. You know, they're playing politics and managing the crisis at the same time. Obviously, they're not doing a good job of managing the crisis, but they're doing a great job of playing the politics. And so, you know, once again, Democrats are cooperating to make the president look good, instead of doing what they need to do for the people, and then trying as hard as they can to make the president look bad.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
It's very frustrating, and to the point you're making, I too get those emails and bashing Democrats on a routine basis. When I criticized Joe Biden, I told you this earlier, the response I got from, I call them Biden bros, many Biden lovers, was to tone down. We should all rally around Biden and recognize that it would hurt his campaign if he aggressively criticized Trump, because swing voters are offended by people trying to take partisan advantage of a crisis. I'm like, what universe are you living in, Biden lovers? The Republicans are taking advantage of this crisis every single day, to the point where you have a pastor in Florida showing his defiance of all the doctors and the scientists in the world by bringing everybody into a church and saying, daring the authorities to arrest him and making it a religious First Amendment issue. David, sometimes I think that the Democrats have fallen in love with what? A strategy that almost guarantees self-defeat.
I mean, they exist in a different universe that is gone, and it's the universe of the 80s, where if a tragedy struck the United States, the parties would work together to come to the best solution to save the most people. And the people that run the country right now are not like that. People that run the country right now want to preserve their own power at all costs, and if that cost is 50,000, 100,000 lives that could have otherwise been saved, then so be it. Because they regard the Democrats as illegitimate. They regard Democrats coming to power as the end of the republic. We're going to go door to door taking people's guns and socialize the medical system, and they have an apocalyptic reading about what would happen if Democrats won. And so in that sense, they think that any tactic is justifiable to keep the opposition away from power. And Biden in particular, it's like so crazy that the person that we've settled on is the person that is honestly the most delusional about the possibility of getting Republicans to work with him. And so the idea that avoiding criticism of President Trump will help the Democrats in November, this flies in the face of literally everything that we've learned about politics in this country over the last 20 years. Like, Democrats did successfully, I think, make some political hay out of Bush's handling of Katrina. Like, nobody at the time was saying, like, well, we can't criticize President Bush over his handling of Katrina. It was, it was obviously a botched response. They seized on the most ridiculous comments, heck of a job, Brownie, and they repeated them over and over again, and then they took Congress. And so I think if Bush was at about the same approval level at the time as Trump is now, this was in 2005, the Iraq War was starting to take its toll. Bush was in the 40s. Where Trump is in the 40s already. He's getting a kind of a sugar high, I think, from some Democrats saying that they approve of what he's doing, even though they're still saying they're not going to vote for him. So I'm not super worried about his approval spike yet. But I am worried that Biden will continue this posture of not confronting the president into the fall, particularly in the debates. If he said, there was this debate about whether we should call the president a mass murderer. And I'm like, of course we should call the president a mass murderer, right? That's exactly what he is. Yeah. He's shooting people in the middle of Fifth Avenue right now, literally. And so the idea that Republicans would refrain from doing that to us for a single second is just crazy. Remember how crazy Republicans went over Ebola in 2014, which was a disease that 10 people in the whole country, and is not easily transmissible and was never really going to be the kind of threat that people were fearing would be. Not to say that it shouldn't have been treated seriously, but it's not the same. It's not even in the same category of threat to us. And they relentlessly politicized the Obama administration's response to that. They made it racialized, like they're doing now in terms of it's like an African menace, just the way it's the Chinese virus.
By the way,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say the polls. If you put too much stock in it at any single poll, either a Democrat or Republican, you're going to be disappointed ultimately. The latest poll that I just saw showed that Trump's down back to where he was before. The sugar high, as you call it, has faded. I don't see how any Democrat can seriously look in the mirror and say they think that Donald Trump is doing a good job in the middle of this pandemic. All right, the final question I'll put to you, and I'll probably ask you this question several times over the next few weeks. What are the odds that President Obama has a private meeting with Joe Biden to request that he leave the ticket, and so that the Democrats can go into the November election with a different candidate at the top of the ticket? What do you think of that possibility?
It's a non-zero possibility. I mean, in addition to sort of the long-standing issues that Biden has had in his campaign in terms of, speaking in complete sentences and rolling out any kind of policies that are interesting that he can actually talk about. We now have a sexual assault allegation against him that seems. I'm not the judge of whether things are credible or not credible, but there's no reason to a priori dismiss it as something that's not serious. I think it's being buried by the news of the day, but I fear that it's gonna come back in the summer or the fall, just at the worst possible time. Obviously Trump will invite, this woman and her family to the debates like he did with Hillary Clinton's accusers, and she's just going to run the same playbook against him. And if Biden were more nimble and had a better comms team and had a better response team, I'd feel less worried about that. But it's definitely a significant concern. I mean, his appearances don't inspire confidence. They're not all uniformly terrible. Sometimes he says the right thing, and sometimes he reads successfully from the notes that are given to him. I trust that he would appoint people to manage the crisis, which we'll probably still be dealing with next year. So I'm not worried about that. It's just, we had a candidate that already had some holes in the sheets and on the sailboat, and now we have another problem that I don't think people are really confronting seriously enough yet. And that sets up a pretty potentially calamitous situation at the convention. It sets up a pretty potentially calamitous situation after the convention. Everybody needs to read the DNC's rules for replacing nominees very carefully, given that both of the remaining contenders in the race are of the age where your mortality from contracting COVID-19 is very high. One or both of them could get it. One or both of them could die. A little more worried about Bernie at this point because he's been spending so much time in the Senate. But there's a lot of scenarios to game out in terms of how this could unfold. Something could happen to Biden between now and the convention. Probably some other establishment candidate would get back in. Maybe Bernie would have a lead over that person. But to be honest, I don't think that he would get the nomination. And that'll just kind of piss off half the party in a pretty unproductive way.
Yeah.
So it's also, I mean, has anybody even talked about how they're going to hold the convention in a situation where there's almost certainly going to be bans on massive gathering? How are they going to vote? Have they set up procedures to remote vote? It's just there's an escalating series of potential landmines that we're facing as we head into an election season like this with this unprecedented situation in our hands.
Yeah, I would point out that many of the centrist Dems spent much of February sending out these ominous warnings of the dire consequence for the entire party, from senator on down to state rep, if Bernie is the head of the ticket. And now, when somebody like me points out the weaknesses of Joe Biden, which, in my opinion, are far greater than what Bernie brought to the table, we're told, shut up, be quiet, fall in line, it'll all be okay. Wait. I don't know. Sometimes they got their eyes closed and their fingers in their ears, David, so they can block out all the bad news. David Faris is my guest. We're going to have to let him go from Roosevelt University. Thank you very much, David. I appreciate you taking time. We'll bring you back on real soon, all right?
No, it's been great to be here, and we will see each other in person again soon, I promise.
All right, that's the great David Faris. And yeah, he wrote the book on how Democrats should be more like Republicans, not in embracing insane ideologies and where you encourage people to go to church in the middle of a pandemic, but in terms of playing it tough and that's not letting the Republicans get away with murder. All right, thank you very much, David Faris. Been a great show today. We'll sign off. I want to thank, of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Illinois, who wheels and deals at the board, does it every day, and deserves a raise. So if they don't give it to you, D, you know what to do. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Yes, that's billion with a B.